And here it is. So as we discussed, more probably is more it might sound more in place for the last year batch, where we do the Tattva Shodhana, which is or Tattva Achmana, where we purify at Shivatatwa, Vidya Tatwa, and Atma Tatwa. It's actually so we start with the Atma Tatwa and Vidya and Shivatatwa. So this is actually the breakup of the Tattvas. And as you see, the top we have always starting with Shiva and Shakti, and Sadha Shiva and
Swamiji,
Ishvara.
Swamiji, my apologies. It is quite blurred. I can't see that. My
Oh,
apologies.
okay, sure, no problem. Is
Thank you,
that
Swamiji.
is it okay? Okay,
That's much better. Thank you.
no problem. So the Shiva Tattva is I did also name it this time with the actual total of 36 tattvas here. And also the new one is that I actually used the actual Sanskrit names. So we might be that might actually sound more striking to few of us who are used to some slokas and all stotrams. And so this is actually the what they listed in the Shiva stutras and sutras. So the first one is Shiva, Shakti, as we covered, the Prakasha Vimarsha. And then we have the eternal Shiva, the Shada Shiva, and Ishvara and Shuddha Vidya. So this 3, 4, and 5 we discussed as Icha, Kriya, and Gnana Shakti, which is the same. They call it Sadashiva, Ishvara, and Shuddha Vidya. And and then we have this is the Shiva Tatwa. The reason they call Shiva Tatwa is the Shiva. Now these tattvas are the more what we call a Shuddha Vidya. So as you see here on the side, they are Shuddha Vidya. There is Vidya and Vidya Tatva, which is also called Shuddha Ashuddha. And then we have Atma Tatva, which is called Ashuddha Tatva. So the reason they call Shuddha versus Shuddha, Ashuddha, or versus Asuddha is that these are our original nature, because the Shiva and Shakti. So these are the pure essence of what we are, and that's why they call it as Shuddha Tattva. And this is Shiva, because Shiva is the starting here, in and the Shiva is the main concept of the purity. So the pure consciousness, and that's why we call Shiva Tattva. And then comes the Vidya Tatva. Vidya Tatva is the Shuddha and Ashuddha. It actually has a mix of the pure Tattva as well as the impure Tattva. The Tat is the same thing as, in Sanskrit or in Sanatana Dharma, we call Mahavakyas. Mahavakya, or there are four of them. They are actually taken from Upanishads, and anyone who gets in sannyas, they get these four Mahavakyas, and the goal is to realize them. And the first one is Pragnanam Brahma. Pragnanam means which is pure knowledge or pure awareness is ultimate Brahma. And Aham Brahmasmi, which is in essence, the Tattva. We will just discuss about the Mahavakya, so we'll have a kind of relevant context for the word Tattva. And one is the Pragnanam Brahma. Pragnanam means the one that's pure, essential, the essence of the consciousness. It's pure bliss, and that's called Pragnanam. That's the Brahma. The Brahma nature is Pragnanam, ultimate Brahma, or you can call it Parabrahma too. Not the Brahma that is personified with a form or a name, but that's beyond the comprehension. Is what here we say Pragnanam Brahma. And then we have I am Atma Brahma. So I am Atma Brahma is the second one. That's also from Upanishad. And my soul is also Brahma. And that's a second way of saying the same truth. And the third one is called Tat Tvam Asi. This is actually what I was referring here is, if you see Tat Tvam Asi as you are thou, or you are that. So Tat is that, or thatness, some like a principle that, um, and Tvam is you, and Asi is R. So you are that, and that is actually what the thatness or the principalness of the whole creation is, what is called as a tattvas. And the fourth one, the Mahavakya, is Aham Brahmasmi. So I am the Brahma. So these four are, you will see quite maybe eventually when we cover the Sadashiva Upasana later in the course, we can, yeah, if time permits and see if the plan doesn't change. My plan is to cover some key Upanishads. So we will be well versed with that and at least the concepts of it, and we'll see if we can, how to imbibe them. And so back to the discussion. Um, so this is uh, the Maya. So these five, Shiva, Shakti, Sadashiva, and Ishvara and Shuddha Vidya, are called the Shivatatwa. And then comes the Vidya Tatwa. The Vidya Tatwa is basically is the knowledge that will take us towards the Shuddha Vidya. So because we are actually, this is actually where the Maya starts putting her wheels over over the Shiva, or the whole and the higher principle, and this is called as Vidya Tatwa. And I'll again show another presentation where I will break up these principles a little more clearly, and that will be more easy. But I just want to show them in the context of how we do the Tattva Shodhana. And so Maya, of course, we covered pretty good last time. In Raga, Vidya, and Kala, Niyati, Kala, and Kala, sorry. So as you see, of most of you, the first question we had was, what is difference between the number 3, 4, 5 versus 7, 8, 9? So this is, as you see, it's a limited desire or limited wisdom and limited action. So the Sadashiva, Ishvara, and Shuddha Vidya is kind of, when you see our ability as a human versus ability as a gods, there's a lot of variation. They can go anywhere. They can, they can look they can, I met some sadhus who can tell you left and right about what you did and what you'll be doing in the future and what your previous lifetimes are, being at the same moment. And that's true. I mean, it's not like myth, but they are some who can do the siddhas. So they actually are beyond these limitations. But we, as all humans, we have the coverage of Maya, so we cannot, desire more than what we can see or what our vasanas tell us, unless you go into satsangs or you learn from teacher. Our desires will be dictated, in other words, by our vasanas and our influence of a sphere of influence that we get from our neighbors or our surroundings. And Vidya is also not the wisdom too. We have to read a book in order to know what it is, what knowledge it is, right? We have to seek the knowledge, and it's very limited. Versus we go to universal, beyond Maya, it's everything is one consciousness, and they can know anything at any time. They don't have read books, anything. And the Kala is action. So Kala is actually what you act upon. So in where actually, over the Shuddha Vidya, actually we have pure, a pure action, and you don't have to, there's no limit for what you do. In other words, the action is not limited by space and time. You can do anything. For example, there's a very word called like, Kamagami, like who can go at any time as per their wish. All Chiranjeevis who are in this body, like Markandeya, so they all are Kamagami. They can go anywhere. They can go on the moment they think I want to go there, they go right away there. So they don't have any limitations. So this is what I was referring to as Raga, Vidya, and Kala within the Vidya Tatwa. And the Niyati and Kala is, of course, that's very obvious that we are always bound by space and time. And there's no getting away unless you realize and do sadhana and go beyond the mayas and the wheels of illusion. This is our limitation of space and time. And then the Purusha comes up here. The Purusha is the one that is the embodied Shiva. In moment Maya covers all the Shiva principle with these five kanchukas, if you remember, or the sheets or layers, it becomes very restricted Purusha now. It's a spirit, very, so that's what we call a spirit or Atma, if you will. And that's a Purusha, that's number 12. And then comes the Prakriti. The Prakriti, within these principles and moment, she acts, the Prakriti is actually source, actually what gives a physical substance to the Purusha. And she kind of imprints all of this upon Purusha, and due to which the Purusha gets all of this nature. And that's what we call Atma Tatwa. Atma is the Purusha, but since right now he already got everything, so everything below the Purusha will be the Atma's nature or principles, and which is obviously, as you can see, is Ashuddha, because this is actually the gross or physical substance that we all can feel and talk and hear and everything. But if you have a spirit kind of level, they are beyond this limitation, so they can do anything, they can go anywhere, and they have beyond limitations. That's why we call this as Ashuddha Tatva. This is impure. And the pure impure sense is not like how we talk in the terms of, for example, saying bad thoughts and good thoughts, but it's more about in the sense of how our original nature has been diluted to these physical body instead of our original pure bliss consciousness, ever encompassing soul nature of us. That's why they call Ashuddha Tattva. And Ahankara, of course, we covered this Buddhi, Ahamkara, egoity, intellect, and Manas. And of course, I also mentioned that Buddhi is where we have, it's kind of a microcosm, cosmic version where all the gunas are at equilibrium, and they start playing actually at this when started at rest. That's when we have a Buddhi, but beyond Buddhi is when we go. And a quick note about the gunas is that um, the sattva, rajo, and tamo guna. So these, they um, the sattva is, some people think that sattva is all we need to reach God, but sattva, the better translation of word sattva is goodness. The goodness, and the rajogun is passion, or I want to do something, and then we have tamas is darkness. So in order to reach God, we have to even go beyond the goodness, because goodness is only when you feel something and you don't have any more desire, so you don't do anything passionately or doing very kind of very harmfully, you don't do. But that doesn't mean that you have reached a state of absolute oneness with the supreme soul. You had to even transcend beyond that. And sometimes they refer this as shanta, like shanti, or very peaceful. And they also call Shantatita, but we'll get to that later on. But right now, these three gunas are always in a kind of a, like a cobweb kind of playing, each other every time, where there's no, as long as they keep playing, that's when we have Ahankar. And the Manas, as I said, some of you had a little tough time with Manas. So Manas, actually, what you can think of is an understanding. The understanding what you get is actually because of the mind, because if you see, the Buddhi is always there, but because of the egoity, you have some limitations. And the moment you have egoity, you have old age, and you're young and old, so your understanding starts developing. At one point it's kind of peaks up, and then as you get old, it goes down. So that means that your Buddhi has been covered by egoity, which is that, okay, I'm this body, so if my body is good, I can understand better and everything. But as you see, the Buddhi is beyond it. That's, so you can call manas or mind as a feature that gives us understanding about the world and about our surroundings. And now comes the Gnanendriyas and Karmendriyas and Tanmatras and Mahabhutas. And we covered all of this. I think we probably nailed it to the to the last bit last time. And so I just want to give you the terminology what we use in scriptures for what we call the Gnanendriyas: the Srota, the hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell; and speech, holding, expression, and copulation and movement, karmendriyas, and tanmatra is sound, contact, form, savor, and smell. So this is, it's kind of subtle properties of what we can feel in our gnanendriya, but this is outside in the nature. And all of this happens within these five Mahabhutas, the Pancha Mahabhutas, Akasha, Vayu, Teja, Jala, and Prithvi. And so now that we covered here, I want to show you one. So you see these terms quite a bit in Adi Shankaracharya's, some of his slokas or stotrams. And the one is, if you see the Nirvana Shatakam, this one from Nirvana Shatakam, you see, it says, Mano buddhya hankara chittani naham na chashrotra jifve na chagrana netre. So you see the words that actually I did highlight in the bold. So he's like, here he's talking about all the terms that not all of them, but he used the one that sounds rhythmatic to his sloka as per the chandas that he used in the sloka, the Shatakam, as well as he's not a complete set. Maybe he got half of them, or maybe 1/3 of them. So you can see here he says the mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham. So I am not the chitta. Remember I said chitta is the one that comprises of mano, manas, buddhi, and ahankara. These three together forms chitta. So he say I am not the chitta, which is the mano, buddhi, ahankara. And I'm not the Shotra and Jifve, na Grana Netre, Vyoma Bhumir, Tejo Vayu. So we just discussed all of them here at the bottom, if you see. So all of these words actually he's using Gnanindriyas and Tanmatras and Karmendriyas, na Vak Pani Payu, na Chopasta Pada. This is what you will come to the next sloka. So this is what you see in the next sloka. It says, I am not the vak, the pani, the padav, the feet, na chopasta payuhu. So this is what he's talking about here, the karmendriyas. And and of course, it kind of just goes on and on. But I just want to kind of, since we introduced some words, and, I just want to highlight that aspect of it. And he always says that I am the form of Chidananda, Chit Ananda, always in bliss, everlasting bliss. And I just want to kind of give a shout out for that, so that you guys can watch out for this kind of terms that you might be coming across in some scriptures. And so with that, I will get on to the next one, is the Unmesha versus the Nimesha. So I think it's a little wrong name here. I had to, it's the right one supposed to be Nimisha and Unmesha. So the Unmesha, as you see, is, I remember I said, when the Prakriti or Shakti, when she opens her eyes, that's when the creation descends. The creation totally spawns or within a matter of, like a very blinking of a second. And Nimesha is the other way back around. It is the ascent back to the Shiva. So when she closes her eyes, that's when all the principles, one by one, the whole Maya, everything dissolves back into the source. So this is actually, I basically listed all 36 principles here. So we we descend from top to bottom, from Shiva all the way till Prithvi. And why we say, and then Unmesha is the other way around. So as you see, the humans, we also, our body is also referred to as Parthiva Sariram. That actually, because the Parthiva is a word that's derived from Prithvi. When you actually, it's like you do a little Vriddhi Sandhi on the word, becomes that which comes from derived. They add a second letter as a part Vriddhi Sandhi. But long story short, the Parthiva comes from the word Prithvi. So we are all the way at the bottom of 36, all the list of the Tattvas. And so our body, as we all know, is comprised of the last five elements: Akasha, Vayu, Teja, Jala, and Prithvi. We have all of them in varying amount of proportions. We have all of them all the time. As long as we have the body, we have it. And the Unmesha is a reverse process. It just goes back again, back to the source. So now the other one I was thinking to cover is it's a little bit more context of the tattva. So we will really make it solidified with our understanding. Is the Shivatatwa is a pure consciousness, or you can call willpower or prakasha. It's basically the origin of vibration, the original pure consciousness, the prakasha aspect of it. And the Shakti Tattva, which is number two, is the Vimarsha aspect, which is the consciousness about consciousness, as we discussed 2 weeks back. And the Sadashiva Tattva is when we getting the I consciousness. Until then, we don't have any limitations. Someone, Mamta Ma, can you mute? Thank you. So the Sadashiva Tattva is the I consciousness. So this is actually when we say aham, I am, or subjectivity is a kind of, remember I mentioned about pramata, prameya, and pramana. This is what it talks about. So the and the Sadashiva Tattva, Ishvara Tattva, and Shuddha Vidya Tatwa. This is same thing as what I showed earlier. And so the next one is quite important. I just want to just park it here for just some time to explain some concepts of the kala, the icha, kriya, and gnana. And so as we see that we have the limited so this is basically the kanchikas that is the essence of Maya. You see the center is a Maya, and Maya's way that she enforces upon the creation, upon the Shiva, and makes him into Purusha, is through these five kanchukas. And space and time doesn't need much explanation, it's quite obvious. But the other ones that I want to focus on is the Icha, Kriya, and Gnana. So as you see, like, all Dasha Mahavidyas, it's always that the main deity, she is depicted as the one who is above all of these three, of course, Trigunatita, that's for sure, but even she's even above Icha, Kriya, and Gnana Shakti. So, and we all, the Kriya is something I want to highlight a little bit more this time, is because, like, whenever, let's say if you want to go to Kashi, let's say you are somewhere in Kanyakumari, hypothetically, and you want to go to Kashi, so you have the Icha, and the Icha, and then you want to know how to go there. So you maybe by bus or by train or by flight, you have a lot of means to go there, and you should know how to do that. And then you have, and the process of doing it actually is the Kriya Shakti. And what we all are right now is the end result of Kriya Shakti. That's why they call it Kala. The Kala, and those of you from the last year batch, we use Kala quite a bit. And especially for Srividya, we use Kalas quite extensively when you're doing the Yantra Puja, because the Kalas are, for example, let's take example as Srima, right? Srima she cooks very good food, very tasty food, and she sings so beautifully, so melodiously, and she does beautiful puja, and she shares an unconditional love. So you can start listing. So each of this is one kala, and that's why if you see, some deities have 108 names or 1008 names. These actually kind of, they list them kind of the qualities, but all of them can be boiled down to some basic kalas that we have. And in also to give some context, to see for Vishnu, they say that Krishna is a Purna avatar, and Rama is just two kalas less than the Krishna. I mean, this is that's what ISKCON people say, but they say that that's for a reason, because Ravan wants to be killed by a man, so he had to be lessen his power by two kalas. He has less than Krishna, so he was born more like in a manhood kind of a person. So they say that he has two more kalas. They say Ram has 14 kalas, but Krishna has 16 kalas. And of course, I don't want to go into the details about what those kalas are, but I just want to show you, the kalas are the essence of what we are. And if you think that, hey, I want to, let's say, I want to work in a very good company, we have a good icha, that's good. And you also have the knowledge that we had to work hard, we had to do some studies, we do some catch up with some interviews and everything. We also had to do that. We know what to do, but the reason we don't achieve it is because of the kriya, the lack of kriya shakti. And some of them, of course, they have desire, but they don't know the knowledge. Some of them, they just do without the proper desire. Like for example, we are like, it just like we don't really objectively, like, some people just sit in the puja, but their mind is all over, because they don't have the desire properly to really do the puja in front of the altar, because their mind keeps going here and there. Because if their desire is so intent and so strong, all the three will be in perfect sync. And the moment you have strong desire, just like if you are getting some a very important interview, or maybe let's say if you have a very important person of your life coming, you wouldn't even spare a second to think anything outside. You always put your attention completely upon the person. But just because our icha was not so strong, okay, we just start to do, you know that's why our mind starts varying. And even though we know the knowledge, but our action, where we cannot control the mind and we just keeps going here and there, that is because our icha was not strong enough. And that vyakulata is what the scriptures we call, like Ramakrishna says, we need vyakulata, that kind of intense desire. Moment you have intense desire, that itself will cover everything else. And so basically we always have doshas between one of these three, and anyone who perfects it, they make that kala as their part. Like how ma to cook so beautiful tasty food, that's her kala. That's no matter what, she always does that. And she always sings very melodious. That's what she achieved during with her sadhana, if you will, or previous life or this life. She achieved her objective by being by attaining that kala with her life. And so this kala is actually what we will be using in doing a yantra puja. So if you see the Soma Mandala, or Agni Mandalam, or Chandra Mandala, Soma Mandalam, and Surya Mandalam. So we each of the kalas actually denote a feature of that, either Surya or Chandra or Agni. So I mean, and each kala has meaning at various levels. But I will just give you one example of what an Agni kala might mean. So just look, I'm just going to give you a very gross level interpretation of a kala of a Surya, of the Agni or Vahini, we call Vahini Mandalam. Well, Dhumraj is basically smoke, right? When you burn anything, any, especially those of you who are used to more campfires, or barbecue or anything, or doing more homas, you know that moment you put a stick or anything, you get the smoke first. That's the first color it actually starts with. And then, because there's some kind of a soot or some very thick layers, that will start burning. And then after that, the heat starts building up in that object. And then the fire, the shine, which is basically jwalani, is like that kind of and the starts little bit kind, you can see some light going on inside. And then comes really jwalani, really builds up very strong. And then you see sparkles coming out one by one. And then you see Susri is a brilliant light, a more, very bright light. And then the Surupa is that light becomes so illustrious, so beautiful form. And then you see a blue color adding on to that, in Kapila Kala. And then that's basically how the fire, when you invoke an Agnikala into any object, this is what the object takes upon itself to become one with that Agni or anything. Let's say if become a Surya or a Chandra Mandalam, anything, when you invoke the skalas, this is the reason why Tantra, all Tantras, especially Srividya, more on it, they stress a lot upon kala avahana. Basically, you invoke all the kalas of that deity within the kalasha stapana or vardhani kalasham or samanargyam or viseshargyam. So we invoke all of those qualities so that it becomes one with that. Just like if we hear, when you offer something to fire, the object becomes fire by taking one by one all these kalas into it. And then at also the end, it also, when you take, if you offer, we also offer ghee, if you remember, when in the homa, because it also consumes ghee. It survives on ghee. The fire, as long as you pour ghee, the fire keeps going on. So it consumes it. It also takes food too. It also kavya vahini. It also takes food. So as you see, I just want to highlight this aspect, that these kalas are a very important aspect. And this is what I mean by saying that, those kalas are essentially what we manifest ourselves when we perfect them. So, and this is, as you see, is also pure and impure tattva, because this is one step closer to the purity of pure tattva. So this actually has a mix of both purity and impurity, and this is called Maya tattva. And so as you see, the Maya tattva is what limits the human, the humongous, or the very high potential of the Shiva that we have. The Maya tattva is actually what limits that high infinite abilities of a soul into a kind of very restricted soul. Because even if you see, for example, even let's say talk about Ashwatthama or Hanuman, or all the Chiranjeevi. I think we have 6 or 7 Chiranjeevis, and in addition to the Saptarishi, who are still in, they can take body at any time, but they are still bound within the limits of Maya. They are still, within that, and because at the moment they take form, they comes into this form, and then they can go back and forth the way they want. So that Maya restricts their soul to play within some kind of a perimeters or parameters, and they cannot go beyond that, because beyond that becomes the absolute oneness, and there's nothing there. And so the Buddhi Tattva is, as we all know, that Buddhi is the the Manas and Ahankara, and the Manas is basically is what that's the mind. The Buddhi actually gives rise to the Manas and Ahankara. Basically, in other words, the Manas or an Ahankara are superimposed upon the Buddhi. And because of this mind's capacity, and because of the, because of Buddhi mixed with Ahankara, we get the Manas Tattva. And the Manas Tattva gives further rise to Gnanendriyas, as I covered earlier, the ears, skin, eyes, tongue, and nose. And Karmendriya is what we, of course, our hands and all locomotive actions that we do. And we have Tanmatra. So as you see, a lot of people had a question about Tanmatra. So this is the explanation simple for that, is that you see the Mahabhutas correlate only to Tanmatras. They don't directly have any impact on mind. The only way the Mahabhutas have impact upon the mind is through the Tanmatras. So this is what I was referring last time when I say that the Tanmatras are medium. That's exactly what I mean to say, because These are the sound vibrations, or or the smell. There's when someone is lighting an incense, we feel the sense. That's because actually that kind of that feature, that property or attribute of that element is going through the Mahabhutas and reaching our karmendriyas and impacting Gnanendra, and then goes to Manas. So all of these eventually, the entry point for all of these three is the mind. And mind has an as its image was called ahankara. It says, okay, I am this, because of impressions, because of our karma, that what we did in the previous lives and our current lives, we build up some kind of a sheet, a layer upon our buddhi, and that determines how we perceive, how our mind performs. And so the mind, as you see, is actually bound by these four elements. So when we shed the body, the mind sheds along with it, all other things will shed off, but our ahankara is still there. Ahankara will again take more, next life, in order to get rid of the ahankara. So as long as, that's why they say, as long as you have ahankara means our desire. Because desire actually means that, because you think that you are different, that's when you have a desire. And as long as you desire, you have a ahankara, because the moment you say I, that means you say aham kara. So, and so that's a very important aspect I want to highlight today, is that this is the kind of final map of all the tattvas that we discussed last week. And I think let's see, is there any Shivatatwa Unmesha Nimishona? Yeah, and the other thing is that if you see here, let's go back to this one. Yeah. So the Sadashiva, Ishvara, and Shuddha Vidya is also, as I mentioned last time, is the Icha Kriya Gnana Shakti. So the Icha Kriya Gnana Shakti, Icha Gnana and Kriya Shakti in the proper sequence. So this is, the creative energy expressed by the Shiva and Shakti. The moment you have an experience, or moment we contemplate upon our own nature, and the way that contemplation power is creative, and that creative energy is what we can we can relate by these three right here, right? Because as I said, for anything, moment you have a desire, that's when the moment you Shiva Shakti, when Shiva says, okay, when Shiva reflects upon its own nature, that becomes Shakti. And that reflective aspect is creative in nature, and that creative nature starts with Icha and then goes to Gnana and Kriya. And all Dasha Mahavidyas, they always have the main deity. In our case, it's Sri Lalita Mahatripura Sundari. She is portrayed as beyond these three Shaktis, beyond these three, Icha, Kriya, Gnana, Shakti. And they always have some deities. For example, if you say Chandi, it's Mahalakshmi, they say Mahalakshmi is the one who is beyond the Triguna. Sarvasadhya Mahalakshmi Triguna Parameshwari. That's what they call Rahasyam, the Murti Rahasyam, I believe. So that's Mahalakshmi is a centerpiece. From her, all of these three came forth. And this is basically, in other words, it's kind of saying that Shakti is the main one, but from her comes all these three, and who does their actions in order to control, in kind of keep the world going on. So in Chandi we have Mahakali, Mahalakshmi, Mahasaraswati. In Srividya we have, so Kameshwari is the one who is considered as the Icha Shakti, and she is a consort of Brahma. Is also Saraswati, also called Kameshwar. If you remember the Gayatri mantra of Saraswati, they say Vagdeve cha vidmahi kama rajaya dhimahi tanno devi prachodayat. So she also referred by Kameshwari, or she who rules the desires. And then the Icha, the Gnana Shakti is personified by Mahavajreshwari. Mahavajreshwari, this actually I'm going into Srividya here, but I just want like more into Sri Yantra Puja concepts, but I just want to touch briefly. I don't want to go too much into detail. Since we are right now here, I just want to kind of touch upon some names, and we will, don't worry too much about it. If you don't understand, if you don't not comprehend it, I just want to put it out there as we are right now on this step of discussion. And so the Mahavajreshwari is a power, is a Shakti of Vishnu. Because moment you have knowledge, it keeps going on. You need knowledge to survive and to keep the the evolution going on. And then comes the Bhagamalini. The Bhagamalini is the Shakti of Rudra, who is the personifies the creative energy and sorry, the dissolution energy. Rudra in the form, ferocious form, along with Maha Bhagamalini, they takes the aspect of the creative energy. I mean the acting, the action part of it, and they dissolve it eventually to create a new creation when the time comes. And so I just want to highlight these. And so basically, as I said, the Maya is the one that contracts everything. All is the first step from Shiva. We have Shakti. Moment we call Shakti, she has this energy of Icha, Kriya, and Gnana. And then we have Maya. Maya further puts on her Kanchukas, and basically limits all the Shiva's infinite consciousness into a limited playing field of Maya, which is mostly which will further trickle down one by one into all the way till our once we, our body, our physical body, which is flesh and blood and bones. It is made of just the Mahabhutas, and it comes down to this. And I think my time is over, 45 minutes. We'll see how it goes. If you guys have any questions, I'm ready to take it on. Let's stop time. Okay. So yeah, Sri Matra Namaha. So anyone have any questions upon this? I know most of this I covered last week. I just want to go a little bit more into it before we proceed further, so that especially I want to give it a framework of understanding with the actual names of how we refer to them in scriptures, as well as the the Nimisha and Unmesha concept that we discussed. And of course, this is what I was trying to highlight today. And so yeah.
Swamiji, I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Villam Baba. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yes, I have one question, Swamiji, just
Sure.
to clarify my understanding.
Okay.
So the Shivatatwa is the pure principle. So Shiva and Shakti, so that Shiva, all of that is pure consciousness. When Shiva sees Shakti, that's the first limitation, because then you get Icha, Gnana, and Kriya. Other Shaktis then that they then create Maya, which then limits Shiva even more by giving Shiva limited desires, limited knowledge, limited and space and time. And then the Atma Tatwa, Ashuddha and Shuddha, Ashuddha Tatwa,
Vidya
is
Tatwa.
when Atma Tatwa is when we start when creation starts to happen. And all the Indriyas are then how the limited soul that interacts with that creation.
Yes.
Okay, thank
You
you.
got it right. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually why I want to kind of rearrange them. It's more where we can digest the information rather than just giving it like a kind of a plain text. So yeah, I think probably we covered most of it. Probably you guys don't have much questions, but I just want to put it there right there when we are at it before I proceed further on.
Okay, Pranab Baba, I
Yes,
have a question.
yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Siddharth Baba.
Yeah, if I try to make a connection between Patanjali's classification, which is Chitta Vritti Nirodha
Yeah.
Yoga. So, what is Chitta in this Buddhi, Manas, and say, Ahankara?
Yeah. So the chitta, I don't know if you mentioned, if you were there last week, is chitta is actually a conglomeration of buddhi, excuse me, ahankara, and manas. So these three together is what we call as the chitta. And so as we do yoga, with all the Ashtanga yoga, the Ashtanga yoga's purpose is in order to remove this what you call, so if you see basically essentially prakriti, this actually when is the first, the most closest, this is the first layer of the ashuddha tattva. So this, the yoga is meant in order to be able to start with asanas and pranayama and and dharan shakti, and we have niyama yama, pranayama, asan, pratyahara, dharana, and eventually we want to go to samadhi. If you see the last, the step of samadhi is basically when the buddhi becomes completely at balance, at rest. There's no more place of the triguna, the sattva, rajo, and tamo. That's when we start going beyond the prakriti, and eventually we'll also go with the help of guru and our sadhana grace and blessings of the infinite. We will go beyond the buddhi and reach the purusha, and eventually even beyond that is our goal, is to go above all and reach the our original principle of Shiva. A lot of saints and sages, they try to stay within the limit of the Atma Tatwa, because in order to guide the other souls, and they try to keep some amount of ego, so that the buddhi can still kind of play some karma within the world, so they kind of come back to the same set of devotees, and they keep coming, so they maintain this three. And the reason, the same thing, Patanjali's is purpose is same thing, is basically is just like any sadhana. All sadhana what we do is actually boils down to what he said, the 8 ashtanga yoga. Does that make sense?
Yes, but then the what they call manonasha. So the that mon and the manas here is not the same.
It is the same. So manu is manu is what you call diluted by the in other words, manas is because of ahankar, right? So manas is because of ahankar, and that understanding that okay, that I am this body, or I can only do this thing, I can only I can only go from this point to this point, I have some limitations. This kind of understanding of world what we have is represented by manas. So when we do the mano nasha, we try to go beyond our limitations that we set upon ourselves, or rather the prakriti, because of kanchikas that we have, the prakriti build those layers upon us, and we want to unwrap one by, just like onion layers, we want to remove one by one and go back to our source. And the first one is the manas, because as I showed earlier, manas is the link, for the main link for the whole creation. All the forms that we have, or the main link comes to the mind here. Tanmatras, Mahabhuta, of course, we can't interact. Mind's interaction is through tanmatras. So as we do our sadhana, our gnanendriyas, our sense of sensory inside our organs and our understanding evolves. That says, hey, I'm just not this ahankar. My ahankar says that, that I am so and so person, and I should be bowed by some other persons. I should get some respect. That's what ahankara says. But then as we do more sadhana and yoga, our manas, and as a whole, chitta vritti nirod gets more purified. It's kind of shining a copper pot. By doing sadhana, more often our ego's I-ness gets become vast slowly. I'm just not this body. I can see some person. As I do meditation, I can see someone else here. I think that my body is just, I'm just imagining my body to be here, but no, that's not true. I can see anywhere. I can go anywhere. So this kind of, you build up, when you get siddhis, you actually can, all asha siddhis are what we do by doing the yoga over a period of time. They take us beyond the limitation of mind. But some people get stuck with that siddhis, and they get kind of keep playing within the realm of ego. But those who are more pure intended souls, they think that siddhi is just temporary thing, I don't care about it, but they go even beyond the buddhi, not just buddhi. If I tell, that's fine, you can understand. But in order to really comprehend that, you need to have a karma kanda. Because as we call, every scripture has karma kanda and gnana kanda, right? So this is the gnana kanda, what right now we're discussing. I just want to give you a framework of understanding so that you can relate. Okay, why I'm doing tattvachanam, tattva shodhanam, every day, every time before I start my puja, because I'm trying to address that I have this tattvas every time, and I'm trying to purify my ashuddha. You see, we start with ashuddha right now, atma tattva. Yes. And then we go to Vidya Tatwa, and then we eventually we go Shivatatwa, and then we say Sarvatatvam. And the fourth is we do all 4 tattvas, we purify that. So I just want to give you a more basic understanding of what we have, and so that we can appreciate. But in order to realize this, this might seem more pedantic and more pedagogue and more intellectual. But you will come to this understanding as we do sadhana more every day. Because this might, hey, what is neti, what is kala? But as we do more sadhana, your mind gets as Siddhartha Baba was talking, the chitta vritti nirod, all this right now, because we can only imagine these concepts. And right now we can also comprehend when I say tanmatra, karmendriya, gnanendriya, you can understand that. But you can't really, ego of course we can feel, but we kind of portray a very negative image of ego. But the ego in sense here is the ahamkara. Aham means I, the I-ness or limited I-ness is ahamkara. So we can go up to ahankara, but as we do more sadhana, we go beyond ahankara and we get into buddhi, and eventually with the grace of guru and sadhana, we go beyond this buddhi and start realizing one by one. So back to your questions. Yeah, I think I would recommend the book by.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem. So yeah, you can try with Yogini Hridayam, which is also on Amazon, and Tantra Sara is also a good book. But actually, I will be covering all of the concepts though. But if you want to go in detail, this is what you can get into it. But most of this, they don't explain the way I am explaining. This is from my experience, because they can kind of give a little brief up about it. They don't give us so much in depth into each tattva, what we just discussed. But yeah, if you want to have some book reference, yeah, Yogini Hridayam is a good one, and Tantra Sara, these 2 are good ones. You can have them handy.
Gee, thank you so much.
No problem. And Madhan Baba, welcome back here. Finally, you joined.
Yes, Pranam Swami. I finally joined, but I think I ran a little late today also. I didn't realize that the class was starting at 7. I thought it was usually at 8. So I think...
I think...
But anyway, I'm so glad. So glad to be back with you all.
Yeah, nice to see you back here. And yeah, actually, we had some confusion with timing because time zone changed last weekend. I think Sunday, I think it changed. So we had UK people had some devotees had some timing issues. So that's fine. So next time we'll be more. I think this time won't change for, I believe, until September. So we should probably, this is the last time we're going to have some confusion about timings, hopefully.
Yeah, I think the confusion, Swami. I didn't look into your messages. So that was the problem.
I see. It's okay. But yeah, I think Telegram is the place where you want to kind of keep on notifications on Telegram, so you don't miss any important notifications. And yeah, I'll also start removing some members who are not active. I just want to keep it very close knit, and so that we have more feeling of, so you all know whom you're talking to and whom you're chatting with. So I'll just start removing some people who are not active. But yeah, keep on the notifications and the Telegram so you don't miss any important announcements. And is that Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes,
Swami
Swami.
Pranam, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have one question. Just a clarification of the Nimesha and Unmesha. So Nimesha is when we are moving downwards, is that it? And Unmesha is when we are moving upwards?
Yeah. So actually there's a little Unmesha is remember, like when mother closes, when the Shakti closes her opens her eye, that's when we go towards the creation. Or in other sense, when we go towards the immanence. Remember I discussed about immanence versus transcendence, and the immanence is the physical reality that we all experience daily. And Unmesha, when Shakti opens her eyes, that's when the whole creation just happens, just like in a fraction of a second. And why that happens, the only the closest explanation that anyone can give for that is the out of a playfulness. There's this kind of a, there's no explanation why this happened, just like how they say the Big Bang happened, but no one knows why it happened, when it happens, how it happened. No one can answer those questions. The only closest word that we can come ever is a playfulness. Out of playful fun, for kind of fun. Lalita is actually one, they say he's also a playful one. And and so back to your question, the Unmesha is when because of Shakti, when Shakti becomes one with Shiva, she closes her eyes. Only Shiva shines. That is transcendence. When she opens her eyes, the whole creation dawns in a whole from top to bottom, 1 to 36 principles, everything one by one. And now she goes from transcendent and she hides the transcendence aspect of Shiva, and she shows the immanence, that what we all feel right now. And when Shakti closes her eyes, that's when the Nimesha starts. Nimesha is again goes back to the source, which is the transcendence. And it's kind of how you feel when you sleep, right? When you close your eyes, we slowly dissolve our physical world that we hear, that we see, and we smell and everything. All the senses totally shut down, right? And then we slowly build up our consciousness towards the Gnani Indriyas. So because even though since we still have the manas and ahankara, since we still have mind, our Gnani Indriyas are still active. Because just because karmendras are sleeping doesn't mean that everything shut down, because we're still in the mind is still active. Even though you're deep sleep, you still have that I-ness, because when you get up, hey, I have very good sleep, I don't have any dreams at all, but that what you're saying, I did not have any dreams, that itself says that you are still there when you're sleeping in deep sleep. So just imagine this in kind of steroids, like when Divine Mother, when she sleeps or when she closes her eyes, that's what is called as the Nimesha, and the whole creation goes back to Shiva, which is from immanence to back to transcendence. Does that explain your question and the question, Papiyama?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
Yes, Swamiji.
Yes, yeah, go ahead, Kalyanima.
If you could go back to the other slide, please. Yeah, and the top.
This is top.
No,
yeah.
No, the first slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just I want to seek a clarification on, you're saying 3, 4, 5 are then limited as 7, 8, 9.
3, 4, 5
become limited as 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, so no,
and
the 3,
one
4,
corresponds
5
to which one?
Come again.
So if my question is, if 3, 4, 5 then become limited as 7, 8, 9, are they, which order? Because you said they are Icha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Gyan Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. So I wasn't sure which one is which in correspondence.
Yeah, same thing. It's actually, Raga to Sadashiva, and Ishvara to Vidya, the limited wisdom. And then that's always you start with, Icha, Gnana, and Kriya. The sequence always goes.
Icha, Jnana, Kriya.
Yeah, because
Okay.
you had to have desire first of all, and then moment you have desire, you have to know how to achieve the desire, and then you have to act upon it. So these three are the couples, like Mamdama. Okay, so these three actually goes hand in hand in order to, So what I was saying is actually that the reflective power of Shakti, which is upon the Shiva himself, that energy is creative in nature, and that creative energy has these three different aspects, which is desire, and then the knowledge about the desire, how to achieve it, and then and really achieving it. These three, and now that humongous potential that we all have will be limited because of Maya's covering by the 5 Kanchikas.
Okay. Okay, I just got confused because 5 is labeled as pure wisdom, and I was kind of equating that to a form of jnana rather than kriya.
Oh, no. No. So, I mean, you can imagine as like just remove the pure, just imagine a pure desire, or, or unlimited desire, or unlimited wisdom, unlimited action. You can also, relate to that.
Okay.
Because the word that they use, Shuddha Vidya, I'm just trying to, transfer the name into our English, which is called pure wisdom. And that's what we call as the Tattva, Shivatatwa. And Ishvara, of course, is the Lord, and Sadashiva is an eternal Shiva. And
okay, that's fine. Thank you for explaining that. The second question that I have, and I think you sort of touched on it earlier in one of your responses, this framework comes from Kashmir Shaivism, and you're saying Srividya also adopts this same framework, as opposed to say Sankhya, which only recognizes 25 tattvas. So then what is the difference between Kashmir Shaivism and Srividya then?
So Kashmir Shaivism concepts are same as Srividya, and they as I see, I mean, as I said earlier, is that they had origin around the same time. The Abhinava Gupta, he just happened to, he's born in Kashmir, but he went to various gurus, and in those days he was, I think, a very well-off person and a very son of a king or something. But he did a very good job of learning from a lot of various gurus, and then compiling everything into the Tantra Loka. And that was his, so he kept that kind of a philosophy aspect of it. Srividya also has philosophy, but mostly they highlighted the Karma Kanda, in other words. So you can find the Karma Kanda aspect of mother worship in the Srividya. But philosophy, you can go back to Kashmir Shaivism. But they probably eventually, the Abhinava Gupta, he's probably around 9th or 8th century person. But as I said earlier, the references to Srividya came even earlier than that. So it can be that he just got the source from the same source from where Srividya derived, but just that Srividya retained the actual Karma Kanda, versus he had that fortunate to retain the philosophy aspects from where same source where the Srividya got it from. Okay. Does it make sense? So that's actually why you see, like, you'll see, like, I said earlier that Nimisha, Unmesha, and you will see Pashyanti, Paradevata, and Vagbhava Kuta, and all of these kutas, everything will be addressed in Kashmir Shaivism, just like how we see in Lalita Sahasranamam.
Okay, so then when you go to the top of the table, so where you've got 1 and 2, you've got Shiva and Shakti. So in Lalita's, is Lalita above these 2, or she is 1 and 2?
Lalita is, we can think of Lalita as the Shakti. She is above the 3, 4, and 5. Okay.
Okay, so then what is above 1 and 2? Or there is nothing above 1 and 2?
There's only 1. There's nothing before 1. Shiva is ultimate source. I know is actually kind of not doing it justice by putting numbers, but of course this is how we can grasp. Our mind cannot grasp unless we put some names and formed that, and we call it as a Shiva. But yeah, Shiva, and the beautiful way to explain what Shiva-ness is, that Ramakrishna says a very beautiful an explanation, very terse, and he's very straight to the point and gives very beautiful explanation, especially for the Shivatatwa, the pure consciousness is such a huge. Imagine that you have an ocean full of pure consciousness, right? And they say that Shukadev, the Vyasa's son who wrote the Bhagavatam, he was able to Narad was actually able to just see the ocean and could not hold and came back. And then Shukadev was able to go close, but he could not touch even the water. He just was able to go close, but he could not touch the water at all, because it's so intense that totally takes you away from the body, and there's no, your body cannot hold it, But Mahadev, or you can call Sadashiv here, Sadashiv was able to go there. He was able to take 3 dorsals of water on his hand, and then he lost his consciousness. That much intense is what we talked about, number 1 there. There is nothing, I mean, 1 is completely absolute. There's just nothing beyond it.
So is 1 the equivalent of Brahma then?
1 is equivalent to what?
Brahma?
No, a Brahma is, yes, you can Brahma Tatwa, not the Brahma that we call as a person, but you can call as a pure consciousness. The ultimate absolute consciousness without a second there.
Swamiji, namaste.
So,
I need to leave. So,
yeah, sure, yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Pranavji,
right.
I have a question.
Yes,
Sorry,
Pooja,
so why is it said that Shiva and Shakti is one? Like I know that the numbering says 1 and 2 as Shiva and Shakti. But when like, for example, when we are doing a Shivling puja, right, it is considered as Shiva and Shakti, or it is just Shiva. Like, how is it?
No, so the Shiva, the Shivalingam is actually represents that creation aspect. So remember what I said, I was talking earlier, is that we have the Prakasha and Vimarsha and Samarasya. So our Hinduism is all about symbolism. They always show symbolism everywhere in order for a mind to grasp. The Shiva and Shakti are the one they show as the the creation and the principle behind the creation, the original principle, and then the Shakti, which is covering the Maya, that's covering the Shiva principle. That's what they denote by the Shivalingam. And over here, yes, you can imagine as the Prakasha and Vimarsha Shakti together is Shivalingam.
Okay.
And as again, it depends upon who is looking at it. If kind of a bhakta looks at it, he thinks it's actually Shiva. And but if you look at a Gnani looking at it, he said that that's actually shows Prakasha and Vimarsha. It depends upon our interpretation, but the essence of that is showing the Ardhanarishwar in that's it.
Okay.
So because he's actually has equal amount of Prakasha and Vimarsha, and he's always there, and that's what it shows, that we all have it. Whether just because we are male doesn't mean that we don't have female aspect in this, or just because one is female doesn't mean that they don't have masculine aspect of it. Otherwise, why would women be working as equal capable as a men, and why would men are cooking a good food like women? It kind of goes both ways. It's just that we just take on some karma, but it's always there. Every creature has both male and female aspects, just that one will be predominant. That's it. And we can and the bhakti is considered as the feminine or Shakti aspect, bhakti, and Gnana is considered as a Shiva aspect. That's why they say I want more bhakti and Gnana. But Thakur says I want only bhakti because he wants to stay in the realm of conscious, on the pure this world, and he wants to stay in this world, and in that he needs bhakti. And if he goes beyond gnana, which he can, but then there won't be anymore. That's what he says, that I want to become, I don't want to be chocolate, I want to enjoy the chocolate. So as long as I'm a different person, I love to be in devotion, so that I can refer to her as a mother, and I'll address her. Otherwise, but eventually we all have Shiva as the primary source, which is pure consciousness.
So then would you say that even so, like Vaishnav schools, for example, will take Vishnu as the topmost tattva, and Shaiva schools will take Shiva as the topmost tattva. So are you saying that Shakta schools do not take Shakti as the topmost tattva, even they will take the Shiva tattva as the topmost tattva?
So right now what we are discussing is Kashmir Shaivism. The name itself has Shaivism, and they also address the Shaktiism. It says Shaivism because they actually highlight the non-dualistic aspect of the creation, but they still have Shakti in there, but they don't address that about the Vishnu or Brahma or any other gods, because everyone has their own creation. It's just like if you go how they do how they say about Dashamahavidya or Puranas. You say if you go to Skanda Purana, the Kartikeya becomes the ultimate god. And if you look at Ganpati, Ganpati takes the primary form. So everyone has their unique concept of visualizing the ultimate truth. Now, right now we are in the realm of Shakti and Shiva and Shaktiism, and we look the world in that terms, in that kind of a glasses, if you will, to understand, to comprehend what our goal is, right? Because even Vishnu also, they portray Vishnu with his Shakti, right? Yes. Shakti is a female aspect, and he also cannot perform because if you remember the story about when Sri left from the abode, all the gods and goddesses became so weak they cannot do anything. So whether it's Brahma or Vishnu or Shiva, they all need to have the feminine aspect of it in order to function in the world, do their karma. And that's why, and here that brings us to other topic, is that in Srividya, we, as I mentioned earlier, is that they mix the Icha and the creative force. The creative capacity of Brahma is because of Kameshwari's Shakti, and the protection capacity or preservation capacity of Vishnu is because of Mahavajreshwari, and the resolution power of Rudra is because of the Bhagamalini. Lalita Tripura Sundari is beyond these three above. So she personifies all of them. And you also see, if you see Lalita's picture, you see Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra and Ishvara as four like a legs of her chair, of her asan, and she sits on top of the asan. Does that answer your question, or probably adds more questions to your original question?
Well, maybe I just didn't word my question carefully enough. What I'm saying is, whether you are following Shaivism or whether you are following Vaishnavism, it boils down to the God is the topmost ultimate reality, right? So whether it's Ganpati or Skanda or Shiva or Vishnu, Krishna, Ram, whoever, the God is the topmost deity, entity.
Yes.
My question is, in Shaktiism, you would think, following the same analogy, then Shakti would be the topmost entity. But here you are saying that is not the case. You are saying even in Srividya, the topmost entity is Shiva and not Shakti. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Or have I misunderstood?
No, you're right. But thing is that she will take us towards Shiva. Because remember, she is one with, Sri Lalita Tripura Sundari is also with the consort of the Shiva. And she, only with her blessings, can we realize the ultimate truth, which is Shiva. Remember, I said like the Lalita is she who plays, right? So right now she is playing with the creation. And as we say that, Ma, I have enough of this playful world. I don't see any more value in this, this Maya. And please dissolve this illusion. And as we pray intensely, and really, have a very strong desire, that's when, and worship Lalita Tripura Sundari. So yeah, she will take us beyond the, what we have, beyond her, which is towards Shiva. Just like, the Nimesha, Unmesha was talking about, right? So if you pray her, she will close the eyes and then we can see the real Shiva. That was the primary objective of the sadhana in Srividya.
Right. So you're saying the ultimate goal is not Shakti herself, but she will take us to the ultimate goal, which is Shiva.
Yeah.
So
because we cannot talk to Shiva. Because Shakti is the one who's covering him completely.
Okay, so that's similar like in Sri Vaishnavism, where Shri takes you to Vishnu. So is there, my question then is, what path, if any, in Hinduism says that Shakti is the ultimate? Or is there no such thing? Where the mother is the ultimate and nothing beyond the mother?
Yeah, so beyond the mother, no. Shaktism, they don't, if you see, for example, any picture you take from Dashamahavidyas, they always portray with her consort Shiva in some form.
Yes.
She is never shown singly. I mean, probably once in a while you'll see, but she's always shown with a consort. So because that's like very unique, binding. But that doesn't mean that, one have to have, but within us, we can invoke that powers within us, Shiva principle. Some of them, they want to have, they have some other person, a physical person, but all of us, because I said earlier, we all have the Prakasha and Vimarsha and Samaras, the Anu part, all of us have it. And by doing sadhana and trying to get over the mind and ahamkara, the one by one, the wheels, the Shakti will take us beyond. That was the assumption of the Kashmir Shaivism, is that Shaiva is the main, but Shakti is covering everything. And if you do Upasana, Shakti, we will go beyond her, and with her blessings, we'll realize the oneness with Shiva.
Okay. Thank you.
But rarely you'll see anything that says, okay, I'm the absolute and you. But yeah, Shaktism, they always tie up with Shiva. Almost all. I can't think of anything that actually absolutely it says, okay, I'm the ultimate. And that's the essential nature of Shakti, because Shakti cannot stay. Just like you say, I want to have a fire, but I just only want to have a heat without the light. That's not possible, right? We had to have the fire in order to get the heat. So they two will come together, but just that we cannot, because our eyes are blind, we only feel the heat. So we say Shakti is there right now. But as we worship, our eyes will start open and then say, hey, actually there's not just Shakti, it's not just heat, there's also a light behind the heat. And I want to know I want to become one with the light. That's Shiva. And that's the process of sadhana, is basically a kind of opening our eyes to the reality. And which is like the Nimesha, going back to our transcendence. Does it explain?
Thank you. That's great.
No problem. Let's see what questions we have on the chat here. That's better looking blurred. Drop. Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you all. So I think today was better than last time, where we went over the board for 2.5 hours. And I think this time was a little more digestible and more practical time frame. And I think, so I think we'll call it a day for now. And let's see, where is my thing here? Just 1 second. Okay. Yeah, okay. So namaste all, and we'll see you all next weekend. So for those of you from the new batch, we will meet tomorrow at the same time, 6:30 morning, time. and we will go over some basic preliminaries practices to start with, so that you can actually have the the actual karma kanda in order to realize this what we are talking about. And okay, then we'll see you all tomorrow, and some of you next week. Sri Mate Namaha, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha, Ganeshaya Namaha.
Thank
Namaste.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Swamiji.
you.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank
Namaste.
you, Swamiji.
Namaste.
Pranam,
Namaste.
Swamiji.
Pranam.
Pranam Swamiji.